Hi guys, it's another week. It's been a while, but we're here with another interview. For those joining us for the first time, my name is Martin. Welcome to Queer. And today I'm joined with a very interesting guest. I'm really glad that she's here. And we're just taking this moment to learn from each other. And her name is Ferzana Cocker. You can Google her. And I think, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you do.
Okay, so my name is Ferzana Cocker, as Martin has already introduced me. I am a fourth generation Kenyan Asian.
Okay.
And I am an educator. I have done both my degrees at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And that is where I am currently working as an adjunct lecturer. And I'm also working for some other universities like Tangaza University. I teach literature and I'm also a writer. Yeah, so that's a little on me.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And what do you do just for Ferzana herself? I'd say a hobby or something just to relax on weekends?
Well, Martin, my hobbies, I like to read a lot. And I think it also goes well with what I do.
Yeah,
so reading is one of my hobbies. I really love reading. Besides reading, I like to also watch. So watching movies is also one of the hobbies.
Okay.
I like to do some art. I am an artist also.
Oh,
so
nice.
I like to experiment with art. At times when I have a little bit of free time, I try to do some art. And sometimes I also put up my artistic experiments on Facebook. You know, I have a following on Facebook because I'm a writer. So I try to also share a little bit on my art.
Under the same name?
Yes, Ferzana Cocker.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like to experiment with the different art forms. I have an interest in painting. I used to do a lot of painting. And of lately, I have been trying my hand on at Rangoli. It's a traditional Indian art form, and it is done with the powder paints.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like to do it. It's actually done on the ground. It's not something that you do, vertically.
Yeah.
It's basically done on the ground.
Oh, okay.
So you have to draw using powder paints on the ground. Yeah, and you have to draw designs. You can do all kinds of artistic designs, but on the ground. So it's a very challenging art form because I think you can imagine doing something on the ground, trying to do a freehand.
Yeah.
Usually I like to do freehand art on the ground, and it's done with powder. Not that you're painting using a brush. I may show you a few images later on of what I do, but it's a very challenging form of art. So that is something that I have had an interest. Nobody taught me how to do it, but I've always had an interest in doing the Rangoli art. So that is something I like to do whenever I have some time. Yeah.
Okay, that sounds interesting. And yeah, I'm really happy that you're here because we get to talk a lot about what I think might positively impact posterity when it comes to Africa and even Kenya. You know, contrary to popular belief, the Kenyan-Indian relationship began with the maritime links, not the European exploration. But most of the time, people, they associate the Asian community with the European exploration. And perhaps you could shed some more light as to your history. You said you're a fourth generation Kenyan Asian.
Yeah, that's
so,
right.
Basically, you can just tell us a little bit about your history.
Okay, so Martin, there was migration to Africa during the British time that started from India. Many people were interested in moving abroad and were actually taken to various parts of the world through the British. There were opportunities, and there was also a need for labor. And so many people from British India moved to different parts of the world, including the Caribbean. You may have heard of it. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of those people also moved to Kenya here. So they moved for various reasons, economic reasons, but also because they were adventurous. I think I can call them adventurous,
yeah.
because they were interested in trying out their luck in a different place also. So as much as the British also brought them here for purposes of labor, to work for the rail. You've heard about the railway, isn't it?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah. Mombasa to Kisumu,
yeah.
Kenya, Uganda. Yeah.
So that was also one of the reasons. But then many people also came to set up their businesses here, trade here, and there were people from different occupations, different kinds of occupations like teaching, medicine, etc. So people wanted to try their luck here, I would assume.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the triggers, one of the reasons that we had people from different occupations, different fields, areas, trades moving to Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically a little on the history. Yeah. And that's how we find that a community of British Indians eventually, I mean initially, British Indians, isn't it?
Yeah.
They settled here, and the generations of that particular community of Indians, continue to settle here, and so many generations have now come and gone.
Yeah.
In the sense that I'm the fourth generation, and
okay.
The children in the family would be the fifth generation, like my nieces. That's actually the fifth generation of children here in Kenya. So it's been over 100 years approximately now. Yeah, since the community has settled here in Kenya. And has been growing ever since.
And not just growing in population, but growing also in terms of their exploits. I'm talking about business, I'm talking about medicine, technology. You guys have been able to come here from such humble beginnings and build something that is worthwhile to leave it even to your children and their children and children's. And so just observing the data, you get this general perception that this success that you've cultivated from one generation to the other, it's not a fluke. It's not something that just happens by chance. It means there's things that you guys really know, there's some knowledge that you're exposed to that has helped you to, whether it's family-run businesses, whether it's breaking into a new profession that has made you a success. And we are here actually to talk about that, why you guys are such a success wherever you are. I'm not just talking about Kenya, I'm talking about outside the continent of Africa, I'm talking about even Africa. So perhaps you could tell us, you grew up in that family setting. Maybe there's something that you learned from your grandfather or from your mother or your father, things that you saw in the community that were being done, that were being emphasized, right? So maybe you could begin to share with us so that we, for posterity's sake, so we can learn from it.
Okay. Well, personally, I don't come from a business family.
Okay.
My dad has been in the civil service.
Okay.
Yeah, and my mom was a teacher. Yeah, so that's one thing that I have inherited from her. Because my mom was a teacher, so she was more of an role model and inspirational figure for me. So that's one thing that I picked on, you see.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm also here as a teacher.
Okay.
I was really inspired. And as far as business is concerned, I think...
or even in general, just the principles, even in general, yeah.
I think generally I can say that they're very disciplined. Asians are very disciplined, and they're also very passionate. They're very passionate, about what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on one's passion, your interests also. And it's part of, let's say, if I take you back in history, as far as the generational businesses are concerned, it's more of an ancient practice.
Okay.
Back in India. There was a system known as the caste system. You may have heard of it.
Yeah, I did.
And that caste system initially, in those years, in the past, used to encourage people to specialize in their business or in their trade.
Okay.
Whatever occupation people were into initially, they were encouraged to retain that occupation.
To stay within.
Yeah,
okay.
within. So that sort of created a situation where people were just specializing in their family business. And it was something which was passed on from one generation to the other. So even if you're in teaching or if you're in business, metal business or any kind of trade, you see, farming, whatever you do, you're just going to keep on specializing in that area.
Okay.
So that's one thing which is which has been part of the masses in all those, since the ancient times. So that is why people back there were even specializing. To date, if you go there, you will find some people still into the generational business.
Yeah.
And they're specializing in craft, in trade, and there are varieties of crafts they are into back in India. So that has been there, it's still there to an extent. But you see, caste system is, it's banned. After the British time, there are lots of changes which occurred in India.
Yeah,
so a lot of things have changed. There is a shift out there. Yeah, it has been for a while now.
Okay.
And people are no longer really within that setup. People have moved beyond the caste system. They have been specializing in other areas. They've gone into other areas. Like modern generations are no longer really so much into the family generational, business, family business.
Yeah.
They have actually moved. Some have gone into medicine, some have gone into education, law, and so many other professions have come up with the modern situation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but generally that perhaps can be one of the reasons as to why people have been so successful in running the family businesses. Yeah.
The specialization part.
Yeah, the specialization part, the discipline part that you have to continue and you have to specialize. And those are some of the reasons as to why probably we can say that people are so good in one field, or people really like to maintain the family business.
Yeah.
Although it's not a must that they still retain the same trade of the ancestors, because when the migrants move, they probably do something which is in line with the country where they have moved to, maybe set up a new business. But then when it comes to the next generation, they keep on encouraging the generation to continue their father's business. So that's probably what also happened here initially, but people have broken away.
Okay.
So nowadays, the young generation, even the previous generation, you will not find them so much into the family business, because people are into other trades and professions. Yeah, but that is a little bit on the history. So I think passion, in my opinion, they're very passionate about whatever they do. Yeah, whether it's some other business or whether it's a family business, but I think they're very passionate about what they do. And commitment for sure is one thing you require. I'm just saying generally, because anything you do, you need to have commitment in it. Yeah. So your passion, you have to be passionate about whatever you're doing, and you have to have a commitment, which is very important. And with that also comes discipline, because if you're not disciplined, then you can't really achieve anything. So generally, I think those are the areas which really matter, and probably those are some things which help someone to become what they are. Yeah.
And how is discipline emphasized, especially in your community? Growing up, were your parents like a bit, hard when it comes to education? Like you had to go to school, you had to post good grades. How was it growing under? Was there pressure?
Yes, there was. Both my parents, they did want me to become educated, go to the university. All that was there. Family, extended family, everyone, even the community. So
like it's the bare minimum.
Yeah, you're encouraged to educate yourself. The parents, they encourage, all parents, I think.
Yeah, true.
All the parents that I've come across have been encouraging the children to educate themselves. And Asian parents do place a lot of emphasis on the grades. The parents take a lot of interest in coaching, personally coaching the children.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so they actively take part.
Yeah, they take part. So my parents also have been taking that part, coaching, because I told you my mom was also a teacher.
Yeah.
So she used to really take a lot of interest in our education and spend a lot of time, coaching us on some of the subjects. You see, at least in the yonder years, there was a lot of that. And as you now start to move beyond, and you're also specializing in so many different subjects, so then still we were encouraged to study, to make sure, and also tuitions.
Oh,
So
okay.
all those things. So parents were very conscious to make sure that children learn, they are educated, they go to school, they go to university. Parents generally, even now, the rest of the parents in the community, they really place a lot of emphasis on that. Parents are big on tutoring their children. They're big on coaching. They spend time with the children.
Wow.
So I think those are some of the reasons as to why children really, the youth goes into different fields, different specializations. They are educating themselves, and they are also very keen if you have to take up a family business. So those are some of the, I think, aspects which come into it to motivate the child to study, to educate, to follow up on the child's education, to take a keen interest in the child's education. So yeah, I think that the parents take a lot of interest. So I have also gone through it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think playing an active role in your child's education really plays a part, because they get to understand how important it is for them. Also, these popular, people say it a lot, that when you get a Kenyan Asian going to school, it's probably because once they graduate, they already have an idea of where to go to work. Like they go to school to learn how to run a business on behalf of their families, or in whichever field they want to get into. Is that correct? That you guys do not really necessarily have this concept of, okay, I'm just going to learn and perhaps I'll get employed. You already have a plan for it.
Like I said, I'm not really from the business environment, but yes, it's preferred. Especially, let's say, if there are families who want their children to take over, then they would encourage and guide the child in that particular direction. And from my observation, yes, generally Asian community, I think it is known here in Kenya, are a business community. They're very big on business. They like to encourage, even the children are encouraged to go into business. So a great majority of them are job creators, and they like to go into business. I think it's also a natural thing. Maybe it's a natural thing or a genetic thing, I'm not sure. But it is very natural from what I've observed. They really like to go into a business. And there are also others like myself who want to explore other areas like education, law, medicine, and all that. But it is something that, yes, parents do encourage to go into business. And naturally also lots of people, it's a big business community out there. Lots of people don't like to work for others. They may want to just set up their own business and be independent. And I think it does give a lot of independence. If you are setting up your own business and, being a job creator.
You're helping
so it gives you a lot of power, a lot of independence. And I also think it's a great thing to do.
Okay. Okay, you said you are a fourth generation, and there'll be more generations coming because Kenya is home, and perhaps you could share some of the challenges, or I would say fear, of maybe later on, maybe them getting away from some of the principles, as the culture maybe gets eroded or something. So what do you see ahead that you feel like you need to stick with, that you could perhaps even tell those who are watching, that the culture that you still want to see there from one generation to the other, but when now it comes with all these things playing out, people getting westernized, adopting different cultures, there must be some few things that you can pick and say, we shouldn't lose this, right? So perhaps you could tell us more on that.
Well, as they modernize, yes, it's true that westernization does have its impact, modernization. And the previous generation is losing out on some of the cultural elements. But I think for the Asian community here in Kenya, we're very big on culture. We do have cultural activities in Kenya. I mean, every community has got their own cultural activities. They really try to connect the youth, the children with the culture. See, like the holidays, for instance, the Eid activities for the Muslim community, the Ramadan, So there are lots of things which are happening here. For the Hindus is the Diwali, which is also celebrated here in Kenya. Yeah, we have a lot of cultural activities here in Kenya. And but as far as retention of some of those things which are being washed away by the Western influences or changing times are concerned, that I think would be more of the oral literature. The oral literature, because I teach literature, so that is one thing which I have observed that is sort of vanishing. And I think maybe that probably is an area which it would be so interesting to sort of revive that, because there is a lot of content back home as far as the stories are concerned, the oral literature is concerned, that today's generation that is born and raised here does not have access to. So all the old stories which the great grandparents used to probably narrate, pass on to the other generations, you find a lot of the elements of oral literature are lost. So the modern generation, unless you teach them, unless you talk about those stories with them, they'll not be able to pick because of all the changes that they're going through. So there are certain elements that I feel are lost or are being lost. And I think another thing that we need to continue is the language itself. That's another area which is, I feel, which is being affected to an extent, because as we get into the modern changes, as we're already part of the modern changes, lot of the modern children, especially the young children, the young generation, are forgetting their language. So the youth likes to only talk in English. Many of the children that I've come across like to communicate in English. So there is an element of forgetting the mother tongue. And many prefer English. So, and I think it's also there with the African community.
Everyone,
the young children that I've also come across taught.
My nephews, I have to, my English has to get better just to communicate with them.
Exactly.
Because
so I think language would probably be a challenge
I think it's really
in the
important.
future years that I'm seeing. Language would probably be a challenge if it is not enforced. I think language may have some challenges coming or some loss. We might lose out if we don't encourage children to retain that mother tongue. So I think it's very important for the young children who are coming up to be taught the traditional languages or the mother tongue, whatever community that they hail from. As much as we do learn English language as a medium of communication, which is very essential, we know that. And I think the emphasis should also be placed on learning of the traditional languages wherever somebody hails from. And also the local language. Like Kiswahili. I know Kenyan Asians can converse in Kiswahili.
You can yourself?
I can.
You know a few words here and there.
So Kiswahili, English. I think because I'm a teacher, so I would place emphasis on learning of language, your mother tongue, vernacular languages, and also English. Of course, emphasis should also be placed on English because it is a medium of communication. But then we should always retain that culture, because when you talk about culture, how can you retain cultural elements if you have forgotten the language itself?
There's no way.
So definitely the emphasis should be placed on learning of language for children, spoken and also written if possible. But that is a challenge because written language is an area which I think has its own challenges. But so that would be basically my observation. As far as some losses are concerned. And changes.
Well said. Now let's talk about your book. You said you've taken a different approach from most of the time it's just been about migration, certain stories that have always been kept alive through these writings, but you took a different approach when it came to your book, perhaps a different genre. Why did you decide to come up with a different genre from the usual?
Martin, from my observation, this is when I launched my first novel, Wild Hearts of the Savannah.
Exactly,
So from my observation at that time, most of the Asian people who had written books. There were few. There were a few people who had written books. There are not so many books out there, but the ones that were written were usually based on the history of the Asian immigration. They were more on the historical aspects, you see, pertaining to the movement of the community from India to Kenya, and let's say their settlement here in Kenya. So those were some of the areas that were discussed. Most of the books were talking about that. So for me, I took a very different route. And mine, I think, because I've been one of the modern generations, I can say, at this time. So I went into creative fiction, and that was something which it's just my interest, out of interest. I did it out of pure interest, and I was a university student here at that time. I think I was in my third year when I developed this interest in writing my own, and I just tried to experiment and explore the writing area. So that's when I started to write my book, Wild Hearts of the Savannah, which of course has its inspirations from my personal experiences, my background as someone who loves safari. So I'm a safari goer. I love safari. I like to go for adventures in the African bush.
Interesting.
So those are actually some of the inspirations and reasons as to why I ventured into that area.
So you've written according to the experiences so far.
I've written according to those experiences so far, and that is what made me actually to venture into this particular area of creative writing. I just felt there was a need to do something different. And that's basically what I did. At that time, I was among the new people who had actually done something very different, to come up with a romantic adventure novel at that time. So there may be some more people who may have come up with creative fiction in the past few years. I'm not sure about that, but those are some of the inspirations or reasons as to why I went in this direction. So safari has inspired and motivated me, and that also has it has its own story, because my dad used to enjoy safaris as his passion. I told you he was a civil servant, my dad.
You did.
So as his hobbies, as a part of his hobbies, his passion, he used to go for a lot of safaris, a lot of bush life, adventures, and hunting back in the past, when hunting was allowed in Kenya at that time. So he and there were lots of, there was a group of Asians, couple of them at that time, who were professional hunters. So they were into hunting and safaris and outdoor activities. So my dad was also part of that lot. So his interest in all that, and then eventually, even after it was banned now, you see, is when we still continued going for safaris. You see? So he still exposed us to safaris and a lot of adventures, bush life, and camping, trekking. So all that was a very different lifestyle. I think it's a very different lifestyle that I have been exposed to.
And a very interesting one. Very adventurous.
Very adventurous in the bush. Not many people were doing it. Like I said, it was just a handful of people who had an interest in hunting when my dad when he was young, in his younger years, you see. So afterwards, later on, when we were born, he started to expose us to the bush and safaris. So he brought in that unique element through his exposure. Then we were exposed, and we also had a very different lifestyle, a very interesting one, in addition to the other interesting things that I do, like art, that I've told you. So this has been a source of motivation and inspiration, and I thought, why not talk about this in my book?
Awesome.
The beautiful locations that I've practically visited, the lovely sights that I've seen, the animals, the park, the bush life. So all those things I felt were very unique and called for a story. So that's why I did something very different.
And I'm glad you did, actually. That was your first book.
It was my first book.
So you've written how many more? Is it, do you have a second book?
Yes, I have a second book, which I published just recently. And awesome. That is a collection of 5 stories. So I've already written 5 stories published as a collection. And they're called Magical Stories. So they're published by Phoenix Publishers. And we just launched recently. And it's already being studied as a course book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's being studied as a course book. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so this was the first novel. Let's have a copy of this. We practically managed to sell all the copies. This is a self-published novel.
Okay.
So it means whenever I want to do I want to do a reprint, that's something I have to arrange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have it also in the digital version?
No,
So
not
it's
at the
just physical.
moment.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a hard copy.
How much do they go for?
2,000.
2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the second book. This is Magical Stories. Yeah. So this is the collection of 5 stories that I've just published recently.
Okay.
Yeah. Magical Stories. Yeah. It's being studied as a course book.
Okay.
Yeah. Even here at Quea and also at Tangaza, they are studying it as a course book.
Okay.
Yeah. And as far as Wild Hearts of the Savannah is concerned, we managed to sell off all the copies.
It's totally sold out.
Yeah, it was also being studied.
Oh, okay.
So we sold off the copies. I only have a few handful books. Yeah.
Okay.
And that is something I need to look into to print the text, another version of the text. So once that is out, I'll still let you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you want to get in touch with her, you can, like I said, you can Google and find her. Yes. So anything else as we wrap up? Anything else you would like to talk about, to add in this interview? You're welcome to do it, even if it's just sending a greeting or something.
Well, I think I'll just send a greeting to all your viewers out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wishing them all the best. I hope that they enjoy our video.
I'm sure they do.
I hope
I'm sure they did. Yeah.
They learned something from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish them all the best, and you too, as you venture into this area.
Thanks.
Yeah. All the best, and looking forward to seeing more interviews with other people as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. As your channel progresses. Thank you so much for having me on board.
Thank you as well.
Martin.
Yeah. Thank you as well. And we're also wishing you the best of luck. And we'll be seeing each other since we're still in school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was a great interview. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.